yesterday was monitoring President Mahama's speech on my way home. Of course, after the Electoral Commission had delivered or announced to us all that he is officially the president-elect. Let me pick your thoughts, right? Perhaps I want to start with the declaration itself, the process. People were kind of on tenterhooks. People had waited for a while. Of course, it had happened long before the 72-hour time frame the EC had given us, and so people were quite impatient. They were like, Madam EC, get on with it already. Let's know what it is. But others were saying perhaps it's a speech to say thank you and it is finished. What's your remarks, briefly, impressions of how the whole process was conducted, and then we come to President Mahama and his speech from last night?
Well, Caleb, even before we get into the president's speech or that of the EC making the declaration, I think we need to congratulate all Ghanaians.
We've done well.
We need to congratulate the EC itself. I mean, the political parties, the flag bearers, Ghanaians who went out there to vote, everyone that contributed to this successful election. Because you see, the 2024 elections actually put the vaunted democracy of Ghana to a test. You understand? Because heading into the polls, Ghana, of course, touted as the lodestar of West Africa's democracy, was facing arguably its toughest test, if you ask me, in elections, because you were going into the election with a very harsh economic environment. There was low trust in institutions. There was deepening polarization, and all these things will fuel, fears of a disorderly election.
And the kind of comments that were coming in from Abetifi, sometimes on campaign trails and all of that. We are not going to hand over power, and all some of the it really got to that point where you were actually sitting on tenterhooks. And
so coming on that backdrop, and that deepened polarization, the harsh economic environment, and all that, to successfully conduct ourselves in this manner, I think we all deserve a pat on our backs, and of course continue to keep that torch burning. You understand? Once again, we have done it. We said we would do it, and we have done it.
We have delivered it.
Exactly. Now let's go to the EC and the speech, the declaration speech. I think Jean Mensah is perhaps or arguably one of the people who maintains composure than anyone else.
Despite the stress.
She has maintained composure from day one. She didn't look weak. She didn't look tired.
She didn't cower to the pressure, huh?
Not at all. She stood her grounds, insisted, and did what it is that she had to do. And I think she must be commended for it. And then you notice how she broke down the speech from the promise she made as the commissioner that she will go ahead and conduct a free, fair, transparent and peaceful election, reassuring everybody, confirming that indeed that she has delivered on that mandate. And then, of course, breaking down the figures therein and declaring John Dramani Mahama president-elect. I think it was a well-delivered speech. It captured all that it needed to capture. Coming from the perspective of the referee in this matter, it didn't set people off on the wrong tone. It didn't pit one party against the other. She went straight to the point. This is my business for the day. This is why I am here. I have delivered on it. Congratulations to the winner. It is finished.
But there was a lot of pressure. You could feel the anxiety. Was it anxiety?
Tensions. The tensions.
And especially when she slipped and also said 6,000.
That was my favorite part of the entire speech. The fact that she got the figure, and I'm sure.
I said, let me take that again.
I'm sure in her mind, the alarm bells must have gone off to say, "Hey,
didn't something similar happen the last election?"
Yeah, the last election too.
But you see, if you're
the numbers are
figures,
the numbers are big.
The numbers. You see,
we are so used to even six figures for a lot of people saying it. It's not easy.
It's not easy.
And this is what getting to the 7 figure, and then it's not like it's a clean figure, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's more like the number is going up and down. There's 6. It's just too difficult. If you have to, it's like memorizing a phone number, really. So it's not easy.
But I think it was short, straight to the point.
Exactly.
The declarations have always
was
been
it short? For a lot of people, it seemed like forever.
It was relatively. I think it was relatively routine. The declaration was done okay. It is finished part. I will not go into the conspiracy theories, but people have tried to deconstruct the it is finished to mean all kinds of. I don't even know.
Agbena.
I don't even know. Why people want.
I mean, she maintains so much composure. It's just beautiful to watch her speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Commonwealth released a statement. We've had a couple of statements from the observer missions that came in, and very often, it's great to actually hear from people who come to watch what you do. In addition to your own reflections, the African Union came. They gave us the African Union Election Observation Mission.
Okay.
They've written what they observed. They have recommendations. We have the ECOWAS Commission. They were also here. And then we also had the Commonwealth interim statement by His Excellency Dr. Mokweski Eric Masisi. He's former president of the Republic of Botswana, and he was the chairperson of the Commonwealth Observer Group Ghana. And so I think that it's a good time we can chip in some of their observations here and there. They talk about the pre-election environment and commended the various political parties for participating in the IPAC meetings and signing the Peace Pact and all of that. They were happy with the special voting and how we conducted it. When it comes to the conduct of polls, they say that it was generally peaceful. However, we are saddened by the reports of violence which resulted in death and injury during these elections. The Commonwealth Observer Group condemns this act of violence and calls on the respective authorities to investigate and bring the perpetrators to justice. The layout of most polling stations, which were outside in the open, ensured secrecy of the vote for the most part, though in some cases the positioning of the voting booths could have potentially compromised secrecy. This issue came up a lot of the times. We kept harping on this on and on. On the media, they were impressed with how vibrant, diverse, and relatively free media outlets across traditional and digital platforms were in Ghana, and they commended the media as well, commended the police for a good job done. In conclusion, it says that we applaud the people of Ghana for turning out in an orderly manner to exercise their franchise. We recommend the Electoral Commission. We commend the Electoral Commission, polling station staff, political parties, police, and media for the respective roles in ensuring the successful conduct of the elections in Ghana thus far. They go on to commend the losing team, Dr. Baumia, for his concession speech. It came in handy. They commend him. They say it's de-escalated potential tensions. Commended President Mahama, President-elect as well. But there was an observation they made that caught my attention. They talked about the booths we have and the fact that it doesn't help persons with disabilities. For those with visual impairments, they talk about the jacket, the ballot jacket, and they thought it was a good one. But in terms of the height of the booth, they thought that if you're in a wheelchair, it wasn't very inclusive. So in the future, they recommended for adjustable booths to help persons with disability. Perhaps we can have entire booths just designated for that purpose without having to adjust it, and that'll be good. But they also talk about the fact that they will actually put out a full-blown recommendation that we can look out for. So that's the statement from the ECOWAS Observer Mission. There is that of the African Union, and another one that I'll let you all also take us through a bit later. But Nathan, let me take your observations as well, especially from last night, how the NDC organized the acceptance speech. There was a bit of a party. The bigwigs were there. All supporters, a number of their supporters were there. It was obviously a jubilatory mood for them.
Yes,
how was it organized? How did you see how it all came? I think was it after Mahama's speech they played One Love, trying to have a reconciliatory approach, though they celebrated the victory.
Let's get together.
I thought that was that was
Sami Jafi.
Yeah.
you remember that during their was it the campaign launch?
Yes.
That's when SUD Kitia requested we gotta chase those crazy.
Oh my God. These guys. Yeah, I think the organization. Let me hear you, Nathan.
I will say this, that I was very happy with the tone of the event.
Right.
It did not come off as
rubbing things in your face.
Yes, it did not. And for me, it was the biggest thing I was looking out for. It was not confrontational.
Right.
It was not derogatory. It didn't look like a ceremony that was designed to jab the MPP and say you lost, ha 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 ha.
And
no,
did it.
I think it was a ceremony that highlighted a number of things. And I was with Donato on telly yesterday, and I made that point on Channel 1 TV, that what John Mahama possesses, or what he has, is the gift of experience. It may be a weight along the line, because there are certain things I'm sure he may do that people will say, oh, you've been president before, we expected better. But what that experience gives him is how to navigate these things. He's been president before. What's the point in going absolutely overboard with a celebration or with an event like this? There's no point. I think what he sought to do, and I commend him and the team, was to remind themselves, and the constant reminders from a lot of the speakers were on the mandates that had been given to them, and the need to deliver, the weight of expectation, and the constant reminders that the Ghanaian electorate was a very unforgiving electorate, and the Ghanaian electorate had wisened up to all the schemes and shenanigans of politicians. So for me, the entire ceremony encapsulated that part. The fact that there was this reminder, of the mandate and the expectation. The whole event was very low key, low tone. It didn't drag for long. It wasn't a show off. It was an event that showed, at least to me, that people who had understood what they had been presented with, and people who were willing to make it work. In the next 4 years, we'll experience all kinds of ups and downs. But like I always say, or as I always say, when politicians make statements on such platforms, at such events, in this front-facing manner where they engage Ghanaians, it is good, because we always will have a reference point. We will have something to hold you by. And I'm happy that the NDC and John Mahama have made these statements to remind themselves of the work they have to do. So I think overall it was a good event. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to the speech. It was what I expected to hear from a president-elect. And I think he delivered a very wise speech, a very encouraging speech, a speech that spoke to different things. The challenges Ghanaians had experienced up until the polls, how Ghanaians are feeling now, and the collective call to himself, John Mahama, and the people he'll be working with in government, that there is a lot we must do. And the acknowledgement that it will be a very tough ride for a bit.
Indeed.
And that understanding for me was highlighted in the speech.
So you think that this tone of sobriety is also a way of managing the expectations of the Ghanaians? Because, with such a decisive victory, you needed to... And of course, yesterday you did make the point that Ghanaians have come to appreciate the difficult place in which we're in, and are sort of ready to cut you some slack so that you can get things done. That was when we were talking about the taxes thing and the kind of expectations people had. So it was good on his part to create that tone of sobriety and start managing expectation, and start also giving indications to people who hope or have expectations of working in a government under his leadership that is not going to be, a jolly ride.
I have two possible explanations for this, and I may be wrong, but I feel that it's because of there's also this there's this tension around the polarization we talked about, the way it's gotten very aggressive, at least on social media. You see a lot of aggression between people who are pro-government and anti-government, and maybe the sobriety is partly because we want to cool that down. We're like, okay, where we are going as a country is not healthy, so let's tone it down. And like you said, it might be the economic issues. The sobriety might be just because, look, it's going to be tough.
Really tough.
We know that debt repayment is starting next year, as far as we are aware. We are hearing that public debt is about $9 million, that kind of thing. Debt to GDP ratio is getting into the 80s and whatnot. I have to get the exact figures, but things are not good on the fiscal side. So maybe that sobriety is, like you said, to temper expectations. But I think maybe in the short term, there's all this aggression, polarization. I think the campaign got nasty at some point.
It really did.
So all of those things, I just say, hey, look, we've done our campaign. Campaigning is done. It's time for governance. Let's forget about all of these things. Let's focus on what's important, because, like everyone I keep saying, we have one Ghana. You know, we've heard it from a lot of the talking heads, quote unquote, who've been coming on air. Fifi Kwete said it. You hear Baumia will put out there's all these things about one Ghana. We don't want to destroy, blah blah blah. So I think everybody is trying to kind of calm the situation down, because, you know, tension was a bit high. We've seen some of the things that have happened. You know, very unpleasant things. I mean. The EC official getting killed in Damango, according to reports, horrible situation. So all of these things are just like, look, right now we are like a 10. The heat is on high. Let's kind of cool down. Let's turn off the stove. I think that's the kind of the tone of the whole situation. And that's how I see it. That it's more that forget about the economic thing. Right now, there's a bit of tension in the country. Let's cool it down. I think that's where that's coming from. Because if you give a very triumphant, aggressive speech. It can
it's not like you have the magic wand to.
It can rile up some people who are a bit on edge. Where if he cools it down, because leadership comes from the top. If he sobers the situation, I think people will be sober. I think that's how it goes.
Brilliant.
But I also add the third thing that maybe is that maybe they feel that despite the decisive victory, like you said, low turnout, and the fact is more like the MPP lost votes than they gained votes, and make them think that okay. Maybe this is more like people don't like the previous government than people like us. It could be in the back of their mind. I don't know how much they think about these things. But maybe they also think that maybe it's more that people don't like these guys. So it's not that they like us. It's not that they like us.
So maybe that's so disappointed and embarrassed they didn't go.
Because that's what the numbers are showing. We don't like MPP rather than because it's not like Mahama picked up those votes. He didn't pick them up. The votes just disappeared. It looks like the lowest turnout you've had in the Fourth Republic.
Yes.
So the public is also sending a message in a way. And I had this argument with one of our colleagues, Edwin, about what not voting means. And how important is in
not
this
voting
election.
is actually voting.
It's voting. But you see, politicians, they only care about results. So if you don't vote, even if two people vote and two people vote for them, they'll take it. So maybe I wonder how much the low turnout is affecting them, because the low turnout, it does have a meaning. From us analyzing, it definitely shows that the public is losing trust in both parties for sure. But are they? Is the message going to the parties? That's the only question.
That's a very good one. We'll come back to that with more and probably talk to some of the people who are really close to the president and have their perspective of what the president sought to achieve with that kind of tone and address last night, and also look into the transition period and preparations to take off and all of that conversation, and also deal with the issue of party people attacking state installations and demanding, hooliganism and vandalism all over the place, demanding their pound of flesh and all of that. I'll come back to you still on our conversation with respect to the post-election victory speech and the aftermath and the tone, the messages that they've tried to set. We would also mention the speech of the vice president elect, who has made history as the first female vice president we're going to have, started this whole history-making business as the first female vice chancellor of the University of Cape Coast. Today we have a good number of other female vice chancellors, including my very own Nana Pianfo, Prof. Legon, and then Professor Rita in KNUST, and then UHAS also has a female vice chancellor.
I think so.
So maybe we are going to have more female appointees, MMDCs, and ministers or something.
More profoundly now that the affirmative action bill has been passed.
You see what I'm saying? But then the Secretary of State of the U.S., Anthony Blinken, he's released a statement. You remember there was one that came earlier that made some people were unhappy about it. Actually, this visa restriction on people from having trouble here. But there's a statement here I would like to share with our listeners very quickly before we go back into the analysis and bring also the voices that we heard from yesterday. This one says, the United States congratulates President-elect John Mahama on his successful election campaign. Following the declaration of results by Ghana's Electoral Commission, we extend further congratulations to Vice President-elect Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman on becoming Ghana's first female Vice President. The United States commends the Electoral Commission, its hundreds of thousands of poll workers, civil society, and the country's security forces who helped ensure a peaceful and transparent process. We also applaud Vice President Mahmoud Baumea for his gracious acceptance of the results. We are aware of reports of isolated incidents of violence and at least 4 confirmed deaths. The United States extends our condolences to the families of those killed and urges a full investigation and accountability. The United States is proud of our enduring partnership and friendship with the people and government of Ghana. We look forward to working closely with President-elect Mahama to carry our historic relationship into the future. So that's it. A press statement from the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, on Ghana's presidential election results. Let me come to Susu on the speech. I'm sure you listened, of the Vice President-elect Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. What you make of it, how it came across to you, and all.
I think she sounded very impressive. I think we have a lot of people in this country who have the idea that women shouldn't be in leadership positions. So that speech and how impressive it was, it's going a long way to change those perceptions, because it's unfortunate that we have these thoughts. Because, there were even videos on social media, people said they won't vote for Mahama because why has he put a woman as vice? You see these videos online, and it's very disheartening. So I think it's important to be putting her front and center, having her making these speeches, putting her in an active role to kind of change ideas around women in leadership. I think this shouldn't be just a symbolic, we've put a woman there, we support women. We want to also see agendas and things that support women. So this is a good first step. I was happy with the speech. I was happy to hear her, and want to be hearing more of her as things go along. I think I want to just say that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Susu. I think that we've come a long way. Beijing was 95, right? Nana Konadu went to that conference. Beijing, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it must have been 95.
Thereabouts.
97.
I'm not too
in the
sure
90s. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
So a lot has been said about women getting into leadership positions. In Ghana, we have done our bit, affirmative action, blah, blah, blah. But I think putting a woman on the ballot, or picking a woman as a running mate and saying that in the event that I become president, you become 95 in Beijing. I remember Nana Konadu-Agyeman went to that event. It was a big deal growing up. So for somebody to say, I'm putting a woman on my ticket twice, come hell or high water, because John Mahama tried it the first time, it didn't work. There was a lot of internal opposition, but he stood.
And truthfully, the second time he did,
many people wondered. Many people wondered why he was doing it. It's paid off, because clearly it helped in a way. We are yet to quantify how much, that contributed. But we are here. We've made history. Ghana now is going to get a first female vice president, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. And you see, once we do it, or we've taken this first step, it will tell us that we can keep on doing it. We can allow more women to get into leadership positions. I've always said that for me, competence is key. So if you find a competent woman, give her the position, give her the opportunity, let her deliver. We've done a lot of firsts in this country, a lot of firsts, right? We've had, for example, people who came from the finance background, the late Miss Arthur, Dr. Baumia himself. They were not hardcore politicians, and they were brought into the political space. They were technocrats. So we've now gone into the arena of, we've brought a woman who has spent her whole life doing education, and now she's in the second highest office of the land. We've had women be speakers of parliament, which is wonderful. We've taken one giant step forward. So I'm happy with that. I'd love to see how the next 4 years will go with Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman as vice president. And I love what she said. She said that she's not opened the door only, but she's holding the door so others come in. And I think that is a great way to inspire many young women that you can get there too.
We have that voice of hers. I will bring that quickly, and then also bring you what Mahama said about her, which I thought was very heartwarming.
That's what I was looking to touch on.
I'll bring you that, but let's hear Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, Ghana's Vice President-elect.
What an interesting journey it has been. And nobody sets out on a journey by herself or even by himself. It has been a very, very interesting one. And I want to thank all of you, those who are here, those who are not here. I want to thank all of them for their good wishes, for their prayers, for their contributions in many, many ways, and for bringing all of us to this site. All I have to say is thank you very much. Thank you very much for everything you have done. And whatever you did, as our chairman has said, the fun is over, the work is about to begin. And as we journey together, we need to realize that we have to move forward also together. Again, I want to thank you. My nomination has many, many implications. Normally, no one even expects you to err in any way. If this will happen, and we know it will happen, it means all of us are on board. The victory is for all of us, but especially for our daughters, for our youth, for our women. Sorry I have to appear in a mask because I have a very, very bad cold, but the cold will disappear too. I know this is a big responsibility, and I don't intend to travel this journey by myself. You are all part of it. NDC is an inclusive party, and we are demonstrating it in many ways. My job was to have opened the door, and it doesn't end there. Actually, that is where the work began. I will hold the door open. The method of opening the door, the method of holding the door open so others wish to travel that door is what I'm implying. It is not a self-aggrandizing position. It is a position that empowers others. This country is not going to be built only by half the gender. They know very well, whether we are in the public space or not, the roles we play. And we have accepted as NDC to facilitate the process. I'm counting on all of you, that you all come along, you all work hard in your various spaces, and finally, that we put smiles on people who either have no access or who are not very respected. I thank you again and again, and I know, thank you for the comments. I wish blessings on our country. I wish blessings on our children, those who are here and those yet to be born. I wish blessings on those who are here and their future. And I believe that the meaning of blessing is to be good to another person.
So let me find out from you, our listeners. I'm interested in hearing from you as well. That's the tone of yesterday's victory or acceptance speech. That's the series of events we've seen since this election give you some renewed hope in the country. I'll be happy to hear from you. 0549-986-996, 0549-986-996. Let's hear you. We're happy to share your voice with the rest of the world. And I'll bring you John Mahama's statement now. But then before that, we're still on the role of, on the history, the historical significance of Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. And I think that since Mahama, actually, the role of the vice president has been, sort of recalibrated.
Yeah.
We saw Aliyu Mahama, his campaign on indiscipline, all that. There was some. There was some.
I was too young.
You were too young. Me too. I heard it.
What's that?
I heard it. Aliyu Mahama's role and his campaign on discipline.
Yeah.
There were some songs that were.
The Bradford song.
Yes.
The Bradford song. It was huge.
Yeah. And
you really worried me today.
Oh, well, I've exposed your age. Don't worry.
Apologies, Susu.
There was this campaign, and someone was peeing somewhere, and then someone came the person, and all of that.
Yeah.
There was a particular song.
That was from the vice president. I remember that when I was.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was that. Then with transition.
So we must have been in secondary school at the time.
I think so.
Yeah, this was
Yes.
The mid-noughties. So early. So Kufuor came in 2001.
2001.
Yeah, so that was around that time.
Yeah.
01, 02.
Senior high school era. Yeah.
So we've transitioned from that stage.
You are complaining about that.
No,
Wait till you come and sit with the banners and the skies.
When's
Amenz is here?
And they're talking about a tampon.
Thank you.
What am I doing here?
Nana, just grab a book and read.
Yeah, so you had the Aliyu Mahama vice presidency, marked really by a social engineering campaign.
Exactly.
Then from there you had who? John
Evans at Mills.
I'm talking about vice president.
Vice president, okay.
Vice president.
Yeah. I'm starting from Aliyu Mahama. Forgive me.
No problem. So after him, then it was John Mahama.
John
because
Mahama.
then you had the late Professor Mills being president.
President
John Mahama
Mills.
was
And then
was
you
his
had
vice.
you had Dr. Baumea, who's made a.
No, there was a Pakwesi and Mr.
Oh, that was a
Asa.
Mr. Asa. Forgive
Pakwesi
me.
and Mr. Asa.
And then, but truthfully, when it comes to the vice presidential role, for the most visible, most active, that has been described of Dr. Baumea, right, as the most visible.
Well,
digital,
most recent.
Most recent.
Most
and
recent.
Of course, most
because
active
John
also.
Mahama under Mills was also
was
very
pretty-
visible.
He was very active.
Well,
Very
yes.
active, very visible.
Very active.
Yeah.
Very active at
Yeah.
the time. I do remember, even though I was quite young.
Especially in the latter days of the good old prof.
Right.
Yeah, John Mahama was very, very visible because you remember the good old prof wasn't really well. He
That's
wasn't
true.
fit.
I
And so
remember.
John Mahama took the forefront.
Yeah.
He played out almost all the roles
A good
of
number.
the president.
So the role of the vice president has been evolving, and in our constitution, I was listening to the conversation on TV yesterday. Sky was talking about how the constitution really. So basically, as vice president, you serve at the pleasure of your president.
Yeah.
And so the role you play is what the president asks you to do. And for many, they feel that Baumea also had that spotlight and all because Nana Akufo-Addo gave him that prominent space to play the game in the economic, digital, and all of that. Now we're seeing a professor, distinguished academic, who has come from years of being an administrator, being at the forefront of administration at the highest level of tertiary education. So is her role going to be redefined? Are we going to see a economic management team, all of these things? I don't know. Just having this conversation top of mind, should that role be redefined for her?
No, I think the law cuts out her role for her. The law, mandates her to be head of the economic management team. The number of responsibilities that are assigned to her as per the constitution, and so for those ones,
as well.
those ones they are set out for her, and it's only a given. But what other roles or how much flexibility the number one will give her? Is what we'll be looking out for. And if judging from how John Mahama brought her into the 2020 race as his running mate, kept her for 2024
when it was not so popular to do.
Exactly. And if you listen to how John Mahama spoke about her yesterday. It gives you a lot of confidence. And if you noticed, even prior to the election, the free role she was assigned to campaign. Yeah. Listen, she delivered one of the best speeches ever during, I think it was on her endorsement at the UPSA.
Yeah. Correct.
She delivered one of the best speeches you'd hear a politician deliver.
It was a very
you get it. And so it gives hope that really she knows that her role is cut out for her. I am sure the party internally have had that conversation and know what role she's going to play. You get it. But for me, I am excited because now in the eyes of every little girl out there, there is hope for the female.
That your gender does not place
exactly
restriction on what you can do or what you can be.
Not to sound funny, but for the little girl out there, it is possible.
Well, very well.
I might get into trouble for saying this, but
that
video is hilarious. Like, it's so hilarious.
It was so hilarious.
Well, when you look at Professor Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang, now you hear her name and then I mean, history jumps at you, right? Like you hear Professor Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang. It's synonymous to breaking boundaries.
Thank you. That's how. So this is what Mahama said, right? I will play his voice shortly. Before I play Mahama's voice, it's quite lengthy. We'll give you the full one. We'll bring you comments as well. But this is what Mahama said of Professor Nana Jane. He said, "I would like to thank the Vice President-elect, Professor Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang, for being an exemplary and inspirational running mate. Nana, your decency, humility, and sense of responsibility added so much to this campaign. The eyes of every young girl, not only in Ghana, but in nations across this continent and the world, are on you today. Your name has become synonymous with breaking boundaries.
Thank you.
You have opened the door for boundless opportunities for our female citizens." I'll leave the rest for him to say.
And she says she's not just opening the door,
she's holding it open. What did I say?
You understand?
I want to just mention something. The whole economic management team thing. If you remember, Osei Chairman Sabonsu actually said there's no constitutional basis.
Right.
That is the arrangement that the NPP had decided that Mahama will head it, along with the finance minister and whatnot. So she might not, their economic management team, economic management council, whatever they want to call it, even if they want to call it economic management parliament, whoever they'll put there, it doesn't have to be here. They can decide.
And you don't have to be an economist to be
But I mean, for what Susu is saying, it doesn't necessarily.
So it's not. I mean, it's not constitutionally mandated.
It's not constitutionally mandated for it to even have that.
It's a decision the party has to take.
Exactly. So I'm feeling that maybe they'll think of her. They'll have other rules. Maybe because she's not an economist, but maybe they might even feel like she knows enough. They might want to put her as head, maybe for whatever reason. So I don't think there is a necessity that should be there. I think it's important to point out that it seems like we've become used to it because of this last 8 years, but it's not necessarily the thing.
And I think Dr. Baumia was put there because of his background as an economist.
This is someone who So it made sense to put him there in addition to the finance minister, who's also very well trained in the economic sciences, as they call them.
Right.
So those two in an economic management team made a lot of sense. But I see, because she's not a trained economist in that way, it's very likely the finance minister or whoever will likely be in charge based on her strengths and weaknesses. That's the way I see it.
Right. The point I was actually seeking to make is that, I mean, there are constitutionally defined roles for her.
Exactly.
But what other role will be given to her will be a decision
by the number one,
made by the number one in consultation with whoever needs to be on that table, including herself. But we are hoping that, I mean, she enjoys a more flexible role so that she stays visible and continues to inspire the young girls out there.
We have Mahama's voice.
Not even just the young girls, inspire us. To know that ceilings can be broken.
I like that.
So I do have Mahama's voice, but before then I want to rope in some of the comments we've had from our listeners. The number is 0549 986 996, 0549 986 996, and this one says, "Hi Caleb. Caleb, for me the NPP was rejected by the grassroots. NDC shouldn't be too comfortable because they didn't perform better than 2020. Youngest son Atagbogba sent that through with the hashtag CTCBS. Good morning, Caleb and team. So does it mean Mahama would be the longest serving democratically elected president by the end of his term in December 2018 with 8 years, 6 months? Swala Amasaman. I think that's correct because
because he
just had some months in.
He took over the reins after the passing of.
But I guess that does that 6 months count? Because he wasn't elected. We didn't elect him.
But he was still president. He was functioning as president.
I mean,
he functioned as president.
Was he sworn in?
But you see, the person
he was sworn in.
Exactly. So once you take the oath, you are president.
Elected. Yeah. They put the democratically elected. Okay. That's why I'm wondering.
Delete that, but he has served.
If he said longest serving president, 100%.
But even longest serving would not be him.
And it will be.
That would be Jerry John Rawlings.
No, but Rawlings was not president. He was head of state.
Rawlings was head of state.
Yeah, well, I wasn't president.
Transition to president.
Yeah. If you say longest head of state, because president is head of state, it's clear. But the word president, I don't think it applies to.
Okay,
that was Chairman Rawlings, right?
Chairman Rawlings, head of state.
I do Chairman Rawlings. Yeah. My name is Anam Poffo. Good morning, guys. I just saw a group of people numbering about 30 on bikes. They have just ended the Forestry Commission. I'm not sure why, but it doesn't look good. I think the police should make their way there. Wow. If what Nana Mpofu is saying is anything to go by, that's concerning.
If your leaders have spoken, why would you just listen to them?
They should go there. I don't quite get these young men. If
let's stop this.
Why are they misbehaving?
And I think that the head of the Election Security Task Force also mentioned that they're going to ensure security before, during, and after.
Of course.
So there should be the post-election security.
Post-election security.
Of course.
We expect that police visibility will be present at more of these installations that are easily becoming targets. Now, Jay from La Paz, he loves gossip. He says, I think Paul Adumotri's book came too early. I'm interested in the backstory that led to Baumia conceding defeat at the time he did.
This man.
He says, I'm not sure everyone around him would have been pleased. That's what he said. And then quickly, University of Energy and Natural Resources was the first university in Ghana to have a female vice chancellor and the first female SRC president. Okay, I didn't know this. My joy is with the fact that Mustafa Yusuf doesn't get to the sports ministry any longer.
this guy, I can tell he's been listening to a lot of sports panorama.
Coach Limley will be happy with him. But let's get into President-elect John Dramani Mahama's speech from yesterday.
A while ago, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Ghana, Madame Jean Mensah, declared me the winner of the 2024 presidential election. I give thanks and praise to the Almighty God because this successful outcome can only be the doing of the Lord. I'd like to thank the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, for his statesmanship in conceding the election long before the declaration of the results by the Electoral Commission. This concession largely diffused the tensions that are characteristic of high-stakes elections such as this. I also just received a call from His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He graciously extended his congratulations to me, and we had the opportunity to discuss matters related to the Joint Transitional Team. We agreed on an early inauguration of the Joint Transitional Team as early as Wednesday, the 11th of December. I conveyed my sincerest regards to him and expressed my readiness for us to work together to ensure a smooth transition in the best interest of the Ghanaian people. The results of this election, as declared today by the Electoral Commissioner, show that the National Democratic Congress, with me, John Dramani Mahama, as leader, has just chalked one of the most emphatic victories in the electoral history of the Fourth Republic. We have therefore been bestowed with a very outstanding mandate by the good people of Ghana. I'm deeply honored and humbled to receive such an overwhelming endorsement from the Ghanaian people. And I wish to thank all who made this possible by going out to vote for me. I thank all Ghanaians, both at home and abroad, for your continued belief in our democracy, despite the severe crisis our nation is going through. I also congratulate our parliamentary candidates who have also swept the electoral landscape with a very resounding victory. I have a legion of thanks to give for this emphatic electoral success. And let me begin again by thanking the Almighty God, the creator of heaven and earth, for protecting and preserving us through this whole campaign period. And to paraphrase the psalmist, I also give thanks to God for preparing a table before me. Obviously, you are all very acquainted with this Bible verse. I also give thanks to God for preparing a table before me in the presence of my enemies, and for anointing my head with oil and making my cup run over. I next have to give my thanks to my wife Lodina and my family, my children, my siblings, and all my extended family for standing by me through all these difficult times when victory and success appeared elusive and out of sight. On these gloomy occasions, you have all come through and offered me the encouragement to keep soldiering on. I'd like to thank the Vice President-elect, Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, for being an exemplary and inspirational running mate. Nana, your decency, your humility, and your sense of responsibility added so much to this campaign. The eyes of every young girl and woman, not only in Ghana, but in nations across this continent and the world, are going to be on you from today. And as you said, you have not only opened the door, but you're going to keep the door open for many other women. Your name has become synonymous with breaking boundaries. And like I said, you have opened the door of opportunity for many of our female citizens. Because of you, the people of Ghana can today celebrate the fact that we have made history by electing our first woman as Vice President. I must also thank my very loyal and dedicated staff who have been with me over the last 8 years in opposition for the sacrifice and hard work they have put into this endeavor. To my campaign team members, to our party agents, and the countless volunteers who spent uncountable hours day and night working to secure this victory, I cannot thank you enough. To our Council of Elders, the gallant leadership of the National Democratic Congress, led by Chairman Johnson Asiedu Nketia, our able General Secretary Fifi Fiavikwete, and our general membership, I'm deeply grateful for your dedication and commitment to this cause and your willingness to give everything to ensure success in this election. To all the religious leaders who prayed for me, and there are too many to mention, at the appropriate time I'll acknowledge them individually. To all the religious leaders who prayed for me, to all the prophets who prophesied my victory, to all the civil society organizations and professional groups we consulted in building our message, to all our traditional leaders who warmly received me in your palaces during the campaign, to all our security personnel across the country, and to the media, to you all, I say a big thank you. To Mrs. Jean Mensah and her staff of the Electoral Commission, the IGP and his Election Security Task Force, our international observers, and all who have contributed to a very successful election, I convey to you the warmest wishes of a grateful nation. For all its historic undertones, this mandate represents many things for all political actors and those who seek to lead our nation. It shows that the Ghanaian people have little tolerance for bad governance, particularly of the sort witnessed in the last 8 years, and that they are willing to take decisive action at critical moments when it matters most. These 8 years have witnessed some of the darkest periods of our governance. The crisis our beloved country has been through these last several years have left a scar on our national psyche, which may take some time to erase. This mandate also serves as a constant reminder of what fate awaits us if we fail to meet the aspirations of our people and govern with arrogance. My brothers and sisters, there is much to do to salvage our country and reset it. It would have to start with a reset of the relationship between citizens and elected officials. We must never forget that the people of Ghana have chosen us to represent their wishes and their best interests. It is the reason we would be initiating important governance reforms and sometimes initiate severe measures in the next 4 years to reset our nation and bring it back on track as the Black Star of Africa. The journey is not going to be easy, my brothers and sisters, because the outgoing government has plunged our dear nation into an abyss. However, we are determined to work together with you to build the Ghana we want. And I am certain that we shall win the battle. We intend to work together to restore the shattered confidence in our politics and governance system. This election and its outcome represents an opportunity for a new beginning as we can begin to write a new chapter of our collective story. We need to consciously set the tone for the new direction in which we'll be traveling. My brothers and sisters, I want those words, my brothers and sisters, to be a reminder to all of you, a reminder to me, and to every individual who has just been elected or re-elected, that no matter what office you hold, no matter what your political affiliation is or has been in the past, the one thing we share in common is the nation Ghana. And it is that we want a much better Ghana. We want a Ghana that works for everybody and not just a few people. We want a Ghana that considers the well-being of all her citizens and affords them each the ability to live a life of dignity, a life of limitless opportunity. My brothers and sisters, from the Kaya Yo to the managing director, to the market women, the bankers, the teachers, security personnel, nurses, doctors, the pastors, the drivers, the tailors and seamstresses, we are all essential to the functioning and forward motion of this country. We, the people of this soil, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, are in fact our nation's greatest resource. This country, this land, is not for one person, or for one family, or for one tribe or ethnic group. This country, this beautiful, resilient, and resource-rich country that we so love, Ghana, is for all of us. This is our home, but it is not enough to just be born here and to die here. We must also be able to live here with satisfaction. We must be able to love, to dream, to laugh, to eat and dance and drum and share all aspects of our culture that was handed to us by our ancestors. And to do that, we must create sustainable and well-paying jobs through the 24-hour economy. Our most basic needs must be met. Affordable housing and health care, food and clean water, safe work and fair wages. My brothers and sisters, it is with tremendous humility that I accept this clear mandate that you, the good people of Ghana, have given me to lead this great nation as your next president. Every vote that was cast in this election carried the same weight. Every vote also carried a hope in the future of our country. I promise you that I will assemble and lead a government that will carry the weight of those hopes and dreams, whether you voted for me or not, because every victory is a victory for the people, all of the people. Each time we have free and fair elections and then conduct a smooth transfer of power, it reaffirms that our history of leadership and trailblazing was not an aberration. It is not by accident that we were the first nation in Black Africa to win our independence from colonial rule. It is not by accident that the first black person to serve as UN Secretary General, the late Kofi Annan, was a Ghanaian. It is not by accident that so many Ghanaians out there in the world are blazing new trails and being recognized as leaders in their industry. Despite being a relatively small nation, Ghana has been and will continue to be a mighty force on the world stage. We're a proud people and have every reason to be. When Ghana rises, we all stand tall with her, and Africa rises with us too. Last but certainly not the least, I'd like to thank you, the good people of Ghana, for this opportunity once more. I know that many of you are feeling frustrated and angry, but I ask you today, please do not give in to negativity and pessimism. There have been reports of acts of vandalism at some government facilities and installations. I urge you not to vent your frustration in criminal enterprise. We must channel our anger and frustration into the positive enterprise of resetting and rebuilding our nation. Let us be brief in our celebration, for the weight of office will be an onerous one. Expectations of Ghanaians are very high, and we cannot afford to fail them. Let us maintain and even magnify this joy and positivity that we feel. We have arrived at this moment because so many of you believed that change was possible. And now we know that not only is change possible, but it is also already in process. Let us continue to believe that we are already moving towards the Ghana we want. the Ghana of our hopes and dreams. And in this Ghana where we have turned a new chapter and are setting a new tone, our best days are not behind us. My brothers and sisters, our best days are ahead of us. Forward ever, backwards never. May God bless you.
Messages are in it. I want to help us with some of these.
Yes, Raymond from Spintex has sent us a message, and he says the people of Ghana voted for change because of Akufo-Addo and Bawumia's mismanagement. The president-elect John Mahama should make sure that he governs well, and if he repeats Nana Addo's behavior, will vote the NDC out of power come 2028.
Simple.
Brilliant. And that's it. And that's a reminder. I like that. Good morning, Caleb. I guess we voted for the NDC to come back and make things right. I hope they do so. Congrats to President-elect John Mahama, and he made the right decision by choosing Madam Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman as his vice. Thanks to him for giving women a voice. The business scientist from UOG says the youth of the NDC should restrain themselves from trying to take over public institutions with force. The law is still active and elections are over. It is true. The law must work. So please, the law enforcement agencies, just be on the lookout and stop people from misbehaving.
Absolutely.
Stop people from misbehaving.
Absolutely.
Those are some of the messages that have come. This one says, this morning, a profound sense of relief washed over me. Akufo-Addo's presidency will end soon. The next year holds the promise of a new leader. This is a weight lifted from my shoulders. No longer will I dread waking to the news of a president deaf to his people's pleas. The harsh treatment of citizens protesting for basic necessities like clean water, the imprisonment, the suppression will be a thing of the past. Under Mahama's leadership, I anticipate a renewed freedom of speech, or a renewed sense of freedom of speech and a right to peaceful demonstration. The future feels brighter, marked by hope and the restoration of fundamental rights. Martin Sedem Ayimensa. This one says, where at all is Dennis Miracles Abuaji? Where has he disappeared to? Ajua from Ashalibu.
Performing miracles.
Allow the gentleman to breathe. He's had a long campaign period, and so allow. Now, the president-elect has indicated that the president has invited him to the Jubilee House.
Yeah.
That's tomorrow,
Wednesday,
December 11, so that transition processes can kick-start. What is the Transition Act saying about these processes? What are we to expect? What's the team supposed to be made of? Are there timelines?
Yeah. So the Transition Act even specifies the order of which people are appointed.
Wow.
So the first people that will be appointed naturally are the president and the vice president, and other people holding office under the Presidential Office Act.
It even gives timelines.
Yes. Right. The next are the ministers and deputy ministers of state, and the regional ministers and deputy regional ministers.
Will those be representatives, or should he have appointed them by?
No, I think it's more so that he has to have. That's what we'll see the vetting about. It's more like the list has to be ready so that to come out. Then the special assistants, special aides to the president and vice president, all those type of things. Then it goes to the foreign affairs, so the non-career ambassadors and high commissioners. Then persons appointed by the president or a minister of state as members of statutory boards and corporations. So those are the last. So that's the order it has to be. Now, when it comes to the specific transition, that's the order of how he's going to kind of appoint
make
people.
the appointments.
Exactly. The transition team, though, is very specific. So the transition team, they said, according to the act, within 24 hours after the declaration of results, the president has to appoint a head of presidential staff, an attorney general, ministers responsible for presidential affairs, finance, interior, defense, foreign affairs, local government, and national security. So those have to be appointed. We need to see names within 24 hours according to this act. Now, there's also a lot of things about the function of the transition team. So they need to make comprehensive and practical arrangements to regulate the transfer of political power, ensure the provision of daily national security briefings for the person elected as president during the period before the assumption of office by the person elected as president, and ensure the salaries, allowances, facilities, privileges, and retiring benefits or awards as determined by the president and parliament are given to those people who are eligible for them, and undertake any function which will enable them to meet this act.
Okay.
So what we are understanding from this, just to summarize, is that the transition, he needs to have people who are in charge of key areas, and the transition team needs to make sure that he's in the loop. So it will seem from this, it's almost like every information the president is getting, the president-elect will also be getting, just so he's aware and he doesn't come in blind.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of this is supposed to start within 48 hours.
Well, the act says 24 hours.
24 hours, a bit earlier. Yeah, but if you look at the meetings of the team, it says for the purpose of this act, the team shall first meet not later than 48 hours after the declaration of the results of the presidential elections in accordance with Article 63 of the Constitution. The co-chairperson shall convene any other meetings of the team. Co-chairpersons shall preside at the meetings of the team, and in the absence of the co-chairpersons, the two persons to whom functions are delegated under subsection 2 of the section 1 shall preside. Basically, just a time, no day.
Yeah. The earlier you do it, the better.
Yeah, so everything is spelled out in the transition.
And there's a lot of interesting things. Like there's supposed to be an advisory council, which is the Speaker of Parliament, an eminent citizen appointed by the incumbent and the president-elect.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, when someone wins re-election, do they appoint two different people in two different capacities, or we need maybe some legal minds to help us on that? But it looks like it to be a 3-person advisory council that will kind of sit over the transition team. And they also mentioned the handing over notes, So when you go on leave, the handing over notes, you do. The president will have
we
to
do it here, so we
exactly.
respect that at that level.
Exactly. The president also has to do his handing over notes. So it's very interesting. All of this is kind of set out,
Yeah.
And they said the availability of the handing over notes. This is interesting. So the administrator general shall make available to the person elected as president the original copies, and there should be 5 other copies sent to Parliament, the Chief Justice, the Council of State, and the Public Records and Archives Administration Department. So it looks like these handing over notes should be, are kept for posterity and that kind of stuff.
Right, and I just need to put out there that the act, the Presidential Transitions Act, is very, very key, very important, because you see, we have had a history of military coup d'etats, and so we did not have a proper experience of a transition from one democratically elected president to another until about 2001. You get it. So that was the proper period where we had a proper transition. From one democratically elected president to the other. This would be Jerry John Rawlings and John Agyekum Kufuor. But even after that, it wasn't up until 2013 that a transition was properly so regulated by a legal blueprint.
Right.
Because the Transitions Act is of when?
2012.
Exactly.
2012.
You get it. So it was that post 2012 election that transition into 2013 for the administration of JDM.
Yeah,
that's when the act
because
was properly
he was not the president. He definitely would have wanted to change stuff, even though it was the same party. He definitely would have wanted to change some things. Might have had some rivals. You know how these things are. Definitely would want to change things up. So it's very good that was created, because I believe maybe we had seen some issues from president to president. It was good that this was codified
because it goes such granular detail to tell you even inventory of assets and handover of presidential. Let me just bring you point 8, right? It says Presidential Estates Unit. Yes. There is established by this act a presidential estates unit, the functions of which are: 1, to take and keep an inventory of the assets and properties of the government, which are assets and properties not vested in the Lands Commission established under Article 258 of the Constitution, to ensure that the assets and properties of the government are maintained in good condition and tenable repair, and ensure that where relevant, the assets and properties of the government are transferred in good condition and tenable repair. Tenable. That's what I see here. Okay. I've not seen this one before. Now, the Presidential Estate Unit shall be under an Administrator General.
It's tenantable. So I guess so that the person can live in it.
It's usable.
Yeah.
Tenantable. Oh, Christ. Forgive.
So right now, I'm sure your English teacher is upset listening.
No, he will understand. You will understand. Tenantable. Okay, so the Administrator General shall have the same terms and conditions of service as a Justice of the Court of Appeal. The Administrator General shall make recommendations to the President in consonance with Article 179 of the Constitution for budgetary allocations for the purpose of the transfer of the reins of government from one administration to the next administration. Now, the Presidential Estates Unit is responsible for the procurement of any assets or properties of government which are assets and properties not vested in the Lands Commission. It goes on and on to say that the Administrator General shall then prepare a national register covering
this
all
is a new
public
part
lands.
About inventory of assets.
Inventory of assets.
yeah.
That's what I mean. So for those who are following us, inventory of assets, who are reading their documents,
Stock
and
taking and inventory of executive
Precisely.
assets. This allows for accountability.
Yes.
it even goes to the point of vacation of official residence. It says the incumbent president, this is point 10, the incumbent president and the incumbent vice president shall vacate the official residences before the day of the swearing in of the president of the person elected as president, and if either of them so desires, move into an alternative official residence. Any other person who ceases to hold office on the assumption of office of the person elected as president and is in occupation of an official residence shall vacate the residence within 3 months after the assumption of office. Then goes on to tell us about the election of the Speaker of Parliament, goes on and on, deputies and all that. Wow, Charlie, power is transient too.
So I mean,
and just for the final one, point 12.
Yeah.
The administration by the Chief Justice of the oaths of office to the person elected as president shall take place on 7th January. So this 7th January is by law.
It's by law.
There's no going around. There's no dancing around it. So the only reason it might not happen is an act of God. That's basically what they are telling us. That if it's by law, 7th January, swearing in should happen.
Interesting one there.
There are a few highlights in the act that will catch your attention because the act is also structured in a way that it will provide institutional clarity, and that's where you have the Administrator General. The Administrator General is actually heading a new body that is established by law.
Yes.
Now, this body will be known as the Presidential Estates Unit, PEU, and it is charged with maintaining and keeping the inventory of executive assets. The unit is headed by an Administrator General who is granted the same terms and conditions of service as a Justice of the Court of Appeal.
Yes.
Now, this enshrines in the statute the independence and security of tenure for the Administrator General. Broadly, the Administrator General has the role of facilitating the transition process. Now, the Act also provides for a structured time frame.
Yes.
And so it will specify a structured time frame for the transition team to be formed within 24 hours after the declaration of the presidential election results. Clear timelines are also set for outgoing ministers to vacate their official accommodation within 3 months after the presidential inauguration. And then finally, the law attempts to improve the timing of presidential inaugurations. Prior to the law, Parliament has been sworn in on the same day as the president, with only short intervals separating the two events. And imagine this last Parliament if the swearing were to have happened on the same day. And so,
what was the date for that in the end? What day did they do that? I only remember.
I think the swearing in for Parliament was on the 6th.
Okay, so I remember they had their dawn meeting, and
so imagine if they were to do both on the same day, and the chaos that's mad. The swearing in of the 8th Parliament. You get it. I mean, so it's good. This law is quite important. I mean, it helps to address challenges post the law, challenges related to the transition.
Of course, we've seen in years past all kinds of things that have happened in the transition. There's not clarity, and people just show up. They want to take possession of state, property and all of that. So I'm happy that it's codified, right, and it will guide the work of the transition. The president will meet the president-elect on Wednesday, and I think that kickstarts the entire process that will eventually culminate or eventually come to an end on the 6th or the 7th of January, depending on how you want to look at that. So I'm happy. The law looks at very interesting things.
Yeah,
I'm very concerned
it's quite comprehensive.
The
And
of
you see, this will help deal with the litany of lapses regarding protocol, delays, logistics, all of that ahead of the swearing in. And so, I mean, if you take the law and you break it down and you go through it, you understand the thinking of the framers and why it is important that we have this, because the challenges that have characterized transitions over the period really were not the best. I mean, you go through a proper voting process, you uphold your democracy, and then the transition is bazaar.
That can be problematic, right? So, and I'm sure that also deals with the estates. You know, in very recent history, you see that when there is change of power, then the vehicles that people have used, people almost want to, and all that. So.
So now I think what it does is that, so Susu, and on that question you asked about the day that the swearing was done, I think that the election of the speaker and then the swearing in of MPs will be done 2 days before.
Yeah, I believe it's mentioned here.
And it's all captured in there. So you see, it allows for ample time, enough room to deal with all the lapses regarding protocol.
Yes, so it says 2 days before the dissolution of Parliament, the clerk to Parliament shall summon a meeting of the elected members of Parliament to elect the Speaker, elect the Deputy Speakers, and take the oaths of office as members of Parliament. The Speaker shall, before the swearing in of Parliament, take and subscribe the oaths pertaining to the office of Speaker. And then it goes on to talk about a little bit more about the things that need to be done. But basically, it's 2 days before.
Prior.
2 days before this dissolution.
So for the 8th Parliament, the process began on the 5th, but we saw how it went, and so we traveled into the dawn of the 6th. Yeah.
Loads of your messages are in. The president-elect's speech was impressive, reconciliatory, and warm. If it is anything to go by, then we have better days ahead. What our country needs now is unity and hard work. I'm not particularly fond of the NDC, but they have the best opportunity to pull us all together so we can succeed together. Congratulations to them. And John Dramani Mahama, Jonathan Agbesi Botre from Kasua sender through. Elimat from Ashaman says the speech of the president-elect flowed out of the heart of humility, honesty, and sincerity. His voice echoes a beacon of hope and a bright future ahead, which is realistic since his good motive and intent can clearly be felt. May God help him to lead Ghana and propel us to greater heights. Shalom, Caleb and team. For me, I believe the media should keep the incoming administration on their toes on these 3 main issues: government expenditure control and accountability, mounting sustained pressure on a non-negotiable Stop Galamsey mining campaign, a sustained reminder to the incoming administration to return to reviewing the constitution in the long term. A lot of inefficiencies and corruption will be automatically sieved out. Good morning from brother Aintema. Hey, who is sending a message saying good morning, CK? This person.
Your CK is Caleb Kuda.
Yeah, no, but it means that the person is, he knows too much for comfort.
You understand?
It says Eyezu Eyeza was propagated by the late J.J. Rawlings during the 1992 elections. It simply implies that vote for the presidential candidate Zu and MP Za from the same party. This contributed to J.J. Rawlings' massive win in 1992 and 1996. Emmanuel Douna Okra sent that through. I got an earlier message that suggested that the late Ama Benuado coined this as well during the Rawlings era. I mean, everything is pointing to the Rawlings era, so.
But it's weird because I don't remember hearing it much in the 2000s.
But Rawlings era, where were you?
No, but I'm saying the 2000s, you hear these campaign slogans. They didn't use it as much.
Well, they did. It wasn't, it wasn't. It was there. I remember.
I think after the Rawlings period, new slogans come up.
But
it's come back.
Never really died out.
It means that right now it becomes their main one. It looks like
well, it looks like all the slogans Rawlings brought up are still there. They are not dying out.
But I mean, it maybe went to second or third. That's what I mean. Now it's come back to number one. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Meow meow.
Okay. This one says, please, why is the NDC National Executive not fighting for the Nsawam Edredri MP elect as they are doing in Accra and Till now, we've not known the outcome of the polls. The AJ from Mampong sent that through. Good morning, Citi. My name is Kwejo from Spintex. Please tell Nanado, Baumia, and the MPP that if they think they are the big tree, we Ghanaians are the small axe. Sharpen to cut them down. You see what I'm saying? And so we are roll. Please kindly play Small Axe by Bob Marley for all Ghanaians for our victory.